Hello and welcome to the latest Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo. I'm your host, Joe Rimmer, joined today by Richard Garnett. How are we, Rich?
Not too bad. Good to be back. I haven't been on the pod for quite some time. It's a bit like the return of Oasis, but I'm not going to try and rip it off in the process.
No. And Paul Gorst is here. How are we, Paul?
I'm good. I'm just thinking I wouldn't pay that much to see Rich Garnett. Maybe Oasis, but not him.
Yeah, definitely maybe not Rich Garnett.
I wouldn't try and bump the prices up, that's for sure.
Our regular listeners will know that we're today on StreamYard. We're rolling back the years a little bit to the pandemic because we couldn't all get in the same place at the same time. So apologies. Hopefully the audio is all right, but if it's not as good as usual, apologies, but we'll be back to normal soon. If you're watching on YouTube, please still leave a comment. I'll have a little look through them later. It's always good to read your comments. Give us a like, give us a thumbs up, press the bell. If you're listening on Apple Pods or on Spotify, again, leave us a comment, some stars, tell your friends, all those nice things that really help us. And before we carry on, a big thank you to NordVPN, our sponsors, who also help us do what we do. Regular listeners will know by now, but to get the best discounts of your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/bloodred, and our link gives you 4 months extra on a 2-year plan. There's no risk at all with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, and the link will be in the podcast episode description box. Gents, plenty to get through, but I want to start somewhere a little bit different before we get going. Yesterday was the second annual Dan Kay Memorial game. Myself and several others played or tried to play for the Echo football team against a group of Dan's former friends and colleagues. It was a 2-2 draw, and we raised, I think on last count, Sam Carroll was sorting for us, but about $1,500 was raised for the Dan Kay Foundation, which helps people struggling with their mental health. Dan, as regular listeners will know, was a great contributor to the podcast, brilliant journalist, long time Echo worker, a big friend, big colleague to us all, and just an incredible read, encyclopedic knowledge of Liverpool, which went back years. And he passed away a couple of years back, and we try and play that game every year and try to raise money for good causes. So if you want to give the Dan Kay Foundation a follow, it's on X or Twitter as at Dan K FOU, and then it's on other social media platforms as well, like Instagram, Dan Kay Foundation. So give it a follow, give it a share, and hashtag be more Dan. So he's missed greatly, and it was a really great occasion yesterday in his memory. So just wanted to say that before we started. Gents, big win for Liverpool at the weekend, 3-0 over Bournemouth. Back to winning ways in the league. Good performance all round. But I thought we'd start with Trent's comments after the game. He spoke to a collection of journalists, including our own Ian Doyle. Spoke about various things, about working with Arne Slot, some really encouraging things about working with the new manager. But I'll read his quote word for word. But then he was asked about his future. And he said, I will get you the exact quotes. He said, "I've always said that I want to captain the club. That's an aim of mine and a goal of mine. But whether that happens is out of my hands. Look, I've been at the club 20 years now. I've signed 4 or 5 contract extensions, and none of those have been played out in public, and this one won't be either. I want to be a Liverpool player this season, and that is what I will say." Gorsty, having read them, I'm sure you've spoke to Doyley about him speaking to Trent. How do you feel? I mean, we're all trying to read between the lines, but what would you say? Just catching a glimpse of Frankie's backside there as well over your shoulder.
I think the postman's knocked. They were interesting, weren't they? I think Trent said after the Milan game, I think 1 or 2 of them asked them to stop, and he did the old "I'll see you at the next game" trick, which he tends to do, which is like his polite way of saying no, essentially. So when I heard he said that again, I thought, oh well, he's probably not going to stop and speak about his future at Anfield. He sort of gave us a little bit of a polite brush off at Ipswich, where he said, what she's possibly going to speak to me about. So he knows full well that the questions about the contracts or the contract is going to come. So maybe he's just giving himself a little couple of days to figure out what he might want to say when those questions inevitably come. And full credit to him, he did stop after the game, didn't he? And he did front up, and he did answer the questions about it, which I have to say I was surprised about, because I know he's been wanting to keep a little bit of a dignified silence while the sort of contract impasse goes on. And of course, that leads to speculation with Real Madrid and other things and reams of analysis and stuff like that. So it was interesting to hear him come out and say what he said. It wasn't exactly a booming statement of intent that he was going to nail his colours to the mast for the next 5 years. But what I think he did say was sort of continuity, that all the contracts he signed in recent years have all been done quite quietly, and when there's news to reveal, then the club will do it on their official channels. So no real change there for this one. I don't really see any reason why it wouldn't be like that. So I don't think there's nothing too untoward to read into it. But what I would say on the flip side is actually today makes it 100 days until he can speak to Real Madrid. Well, speak to any club really about a pre-contract agreement, but Real Madrid, having signed Kylian Mbappe on a free transfer in the summer, will believe that they can get anyone now, really, on those types of terms. So that's a major concern for Liverpool. It is a bit of a worry now, you have to say, that it's getting this close to the wire. So, yeah, hopefully some encouraging movements on that in the next few weeks or months, because it's getting into really sort of uncertain territory now. And I've sort of played devil's advocate a few times on this pod, saying that I can see why he might want to go to Real Madrid. Obviously, Real Madrid being the 15 times European champions now, one of the biggest clubs in the world, if not the biggest, but also just in terms of staying out of the limelight of the constant sort of dissection of his defending from Gary Neville or whoever it may be. You go to Real Madrid and all that sort of disappears overnight because there's no real coverage of La Liga on English TV. You sort of see the good bits on Twitter videos and stuff like that, and we will inevitably see good bits of Trent Alexander-Arnold with an incredible assist for Mbappe or Vinicius or Bellingham, or whoever it may be. So I could sort of see why it would appeal to Trent Alexander-Arnold. I want to say that with a sort of tin hat on, because I know supporters will probably, give me down the banks for that, but I can't see it. So, hopefully there is some encouraging signs and noises in the coming weeks from, either Liverpool or Trent's camp, and we do see an extension, because certainly fans have every right to be getting really concerned now as we get towards the end of September.
Well, Liverpool have been here before, haven't they, with Steve McManaman, obviously a famous example, and then I know he did leave on a free, but Michael Owen, fairly similar circumstances, not signing a new contract and then being sold for $8 million, which at the time was a paltry sum for a player who was Liverpool's top goal scorer for sort of 5-6 seasons running. So you can see where the sort of anxiety comes from supporters. One thing that gets me, Rich, is I'll be honest, I can't really stand it when players say it's out of my hands. It's not out of his hands, is it? He's got a big part to play in this, and if he wants to sign a new deal, surely that deal can get done. You'd like to think that Liverpool will make sure he's offered something that will put him as one of the highest paid players alongside Salah, because he would deserve that. But is there, and you'll remember this, Rich, you talked about wanting to captain the club. Is there a little thing that Liverpool could do here? Do you remember when Virgil van Dijk, Sami Hyypiä, all those years ago, handed over the captaincy to Steven Gerrard? It sort of confirmed Steven Gerrard's ascension into sort of Liverpool's most important player. Do you think Virgil van Dijk would accept that? Would that be a bit hard, especially with his contract running out? I just thought of that earlier. I haven't read those comments and thought perhaps that's a deal that Liverpool could do. In
a word, no. It's just a slightly different dynamic, I think, because, well, for starters, I think when Sami Hyypiä was relieved of the captaincy, I don't think he was performing particularly well at the time, from what I can remember. And it was a bit of a passing of the baton to Gerrard. A conversation was had, and Hyypiä accepted the situation and then went on to perform better than he had done in recent seasons at that time. So being relieved of the captaincy was something that actually worked for Hyypiä, I think. And obviously Gerrard just went on to strength to strength from there. But that's certainly not the case with Virgil van Dijk, who came under a bit of criticism, but now appears to be back to his best. And although he's another player who could be without a contract very soon, and again could talk to other clubs within 100 days himself, he's now once again looking absolutely indispensable for Liverpool. He's the bedrock of this defence again, and it doesn't matter who comes in alongside him. If you take Virgil van Dijk out of that defence, things look a bit more shaky for Liverpool. So the idea of him being relieved of the captaincy when he's looking absolutely on point seems a bit farcical to me. I don't think it's something that would be easily accepted. And of course, he's also a Dutchman, so he curries a bit of favour with his manager for that point. I couldn't see that happening. You give me some bad memories there of Owen leaving there. Not only did he go for a pretty low sum, we also got Antonio Nunes in return, who didn't seem much of a deal at all. But what that reminds us is that historically Real Madrid have almost always got the man. It's very, very few occasions when they've gone after a big player and not achieved their goal. There's a whole history of it, and that includes some Liverpool players as well. Obviously, Matt Manaman very nearly went to Barcelona. I remember being against him going to Barcelona at the time, and then he ends up leaving for Madrid 6 months later for nothing. Not a good deal. Owen, another one. Obviously, Alonso went there. All these players, and it's not just Liverpool, is it? If they want a player, they inevitably get him. But Trent is a slightly different case, and Liverpool are also in a different position now as they were back in the times of Owen and McManaman. They're a team that competes in the Champions League almost every year, and not just to take part in it, to try and win it. And in that respect, the club's never really been in better shape. So I certainly don't see the armband being passed over in an attempt to try and keep Trent Alexander-Arnold. Do I think he'll stay at Liverpool? I think there's a good chance, but I also think that the contract is going to have to be a pretty decent one, because when Real Madrid come knocking, people generally go.
What do you think, Gorst? I'm going to put you on the spot. It just feels like a really on a knife edge, this one, doesn't it? With you can see this, like you said earlier, you can see the sway of Real Madrid, and I kind of think as well, when I was growing up, Real Madrid made fullbacks quite cool. So Roberto Carlos was always the one that you would think of when you thought of great fullbacks, and Trent might fancy following in those footsteps, albeit on the other side. But you watched just Trent at the weekend, the assist for the second goal, stepping into midfield and driving forward. I mean, you can imagine doing that for Real Madrid. I think he'd be a great part of their team, but that's why he's just so important for Liverpool, because he gives them a dynamism, doesn't he, that you won't get pretty much anywhere else from any other player.
Yeah, 100%. And you're right to say, in terms of, specifically for Trent, when he says it's not necessarily in my hands. Now, I could see why Salah might say that, because if there's nothing being offered, then his terms do come to an end, and he's the highest paid player at the club. And similarly for Virgil van Dijk, who's 33 now, it's the same situation with him. But if Trent wants a new deal, then it'd be, you couldn't fathom a world where Liverpool aren't willing to do business. So I can certainly see your point with that one. It's just a really worrying time, isn't it? Worrying situation. Less so with Van Dijk. Salah was quite encouraging from what he said after the Manchester United game. But this one, does he think at 25 years old, well, he'll be moving at 26, I think his birthday's next month. Would that be an ideal time to go and play in Spain for 4 or 5 years? Play an incredibly huge club as Real Madrid, on par with Liverpool, if not even bigger in certain areas of the world. So, yeah, it's a real dilemma for Liverpool, and it's one that they have to get it right, don't they? And that essentially is getting them to sign a new deal, because they can't sell him now. They can't even get a knockdown fee for him. It's a case of him talking to clubs in January, and if Real Madrid do strike the right number, then off he walks, a la McManaman, and that'd just be a huge hammer blow to what Liverpool are trying to achieve under Arne Slot. So, yeah, we're getting to crunch time now in this situation, and like you say, it is on a knife edge. And honestly, I couldn't really hazard a guess as to what way it's going to go now.
That's my big worry as well, is that with the other two contracts coming up, Liverpool will obviously they'll be working on all three at the same time. It's not as if they'll do one and then try and do another. But surely, if you're offering Trent, you would think that they were gonna sort of put him as one of the best paid players, if not the best paid player at the club, alongside Salah. And then could that have a knock-on effect? And then, if they lose one, it's bad and it looks bad. And if it's Trent, it looks very bad. But then if they go and lose another one of those three, or even all three of those three, then you put yourself in a very, very difficult situation. So it's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out. And hopefully, I'd love to see Liverpool get all three done, but certainly 2 out of the 3 would be very important. To go on back to the game, big performances in several areas, but we'll start, Rich, with Darwin Nunes, who was quite emotional. It looked after he scored that brilliant left-footed effort. It was his first start of the season, first goal of the season. We've been waiting a while for it, haven't we? And I feel like it was a huge moment for him in this season and under Arne Slot as well.
Yeah, he did get a bit emotional, didn't he? I think a relief to get his first goal of the season, but it's not his first goal for the club, is it? You know what I mean? It's like, it was a great goal, but scoring goals is what he's been brought to the club for. So that needs to become routine, not a emotional special occasion for me. Sorry if that sounds a little bit cold, but that's just the fact of the situation. Any striker that's playing for Liverpool is going to be measured in the goals that they score, and he was given an opportunity to try and deliver one, and he did do that on Saturday. I still think he's down the pecking order as far as Arne Slot is concerned, and that's going to be.
Do you not think? Sorry to interrupt. Do you not think that pushes him slightly ahead of Jota for the time being?
Good question. I don't know. I'm a Jota fan, really. I think I sort of confirm to the Klopp opinion that he's the best finisher at the club, and I still go with that. I'll be quite honest with you, I'm not a big Darwin Nunes fan, so I'd probably want to see a bit more of him to be able to say, yeah, I think he should be starting ahead of Diogo Jota. Maybe he'll get a run out in the Carabao Cup, which he can build on. A couple of goals, and that would be nice. But I don't know. I struggle. I don't think he holds the ball up well enough for me, and I don't know if the way we play sort of ultimately will suit him. But benefit of the doubt. He does need. By that very token, he also needs games to be able to put a run together to try and score the goals that will make people say, well, yeah, you can't take him out the side because he's delivering the goods. I think it's hard for him. I do think it's hard, and especially with Chiesa coming in as well. There's another forward option who doesn't necessarily have to be a replacement for Mo Salah. He can probably play anywhere across that forward line, which he'll probably be asked to do for Italy as well, the way they're sort of reshaping their formation in the national team. So versatility is going to be important, and it's tough competition up top, but that might not be great news for Darwin Nunes, but it is good news for Liverpool, because if anyone's not performing, they're going to be on the bench.
Yeah, it sounds a bit weird, this, but Ghosty, but it was a fantastic goal, and it'll do him the world of good in terms of his confidence, but I kind of like to see a couple more simple goals, like a couple more tap-ins, and that's where, we've said, haven't we, for a long time last season, he scored 18 goals last season, but he probably should have got 25 with all the little tap-ins and moments that he had. So we know he can score the fantastic ones. It's the simple ones that Jota, like Richard said there, that Jota seems to get that maybe Darwin Nunes doesn't get as much. Where do you stand on him now? What did you think of his performance? And do you think that does that nudge him ahead of Jota now, or do you think that Slot, when push comes to shove, would go with Jota?
Yeah, you are right to say that. If he just scores the ones he should, then last season he would have got close to 30. Really, I remember so many chances sort of in the Europa League games where he missed, sitters really. But then he scores goals like. Was it the goals of Sparta Prague? The goal
even the two at Newcastle. The two at Newcastle were really finishes that he pulled off.
Yeah, and then Saturday was probably the best of his lot so far, isn't it? I think, what's he got now? Maybe 35 goals for Liverpool? And that was probably certainly in the top 2 or 3, the way he sort of cuts inside on the left foot against a keeper who's really big as well. He's about 6'7", Kepa, and he gets it away from him with his left foot, gets it in off the post. Really good goal. And the build-up play to it as well, with that sort of barnstorm and flick on and then carries on his run. Lovely little flick around the corner from Salah. It was a really good goal. But you're right, if he just starts taking those little tap-ins more often than not, then he'll just see that goal Salah go up, and the conversation around them will never go quieter. But I thought Virgil van Dijk was spot on in quotes that he's come out with today. They're on our website. He basically said it was a great goal, but what we need now is a bit of consistency from him, and just essentially what we're saying now, just start taking the simple ones a bit more, and then you start just hitting the numbers almost without doing it too much else for what you're doing now. It's just a case of when those chances do arise, stick them away. But no, it was a really good performance from him all round. There was times that he was tracking back, putting his foot in, winning it back, and the crowd really sort of responded to that, as they inevitably do with Nunes. He's a real crowd favourite, isn't he? But yeah, I agree with Rich. I think it'd be good to see him start Wednesday night in the Cup. Maybe I think West Ham will be a little bit concerned with how they've started the Premier League season, so won't be too concerned. We'll make changes, and I think that could be a good opportunity for Liverpool to sort of put them to the sword in the way that they did last year. Was that in the quarterfinals? So I'd like to see Nunes carry on now. But if you're asking me who I'd prefer to see start up front for Liverpool if they were playing in the Champions League final this weekend, I still think Nunes gets the shirt. Jota's got the shirt. Just think he brings a bit more control and a bit more surety to that forward line, and hasn't done a whole lot wrong, really. Took his goal well at Ipswich and has had a good season so far. But yeah, it'd be nice to see Nunes build on her anyway on Wednesday night.
Do you know what I thought was fascinating about those Van Dijk quotes as well, by the way? The fact that he talked about Nunes being not sort of buying into the emotion. He says positive or negative, but basically don't get carried away. And he obviously, we sort of see him from the outside as this emotional guy with the social media stuff and in suspending his account and all that. But clearly his teammates and his captain clearly thinks the same, doesn't he? So it's almost like don't get caught up on all this. Just get your head down and carry on. And
also as well, what he said, which was a bit different from what you normally hear players say, is he referenced the price tag. He didn't put a figure on it, but he said when you come in for a lot of money, you've got to produce week in, week out. And I think that's fair enough. I think I've said a few times now, if Nunes was, coming in at a Diaz, Jota sort of price range, then there wouldn't be as much conversation around him. But the fact that he is 64 million to begin with, he's now at least 75 million that we know of, club record equaling alongside Van Dijk. I think supporters are probably within the rights to demand a few more tap-ins and just get that goal tally up.
Well, he's a £65 million striker that doesn't start every week. So that probably doesn't sit too well with the money man. But
to be fair, Rich, I've got no issue with that. And one of my biggest issues with Liverpool in the past is that they buy players and then force them into the team. To me, it's fine if Nunes is part of the rotation, but it doesn't really matter what you pay for him if he plays his part in Liverpool achieving things. But obviously, we know with Nunes that just feels like a higher ceiling for him to hit. We talk about those misses. And,
I mean, I take your point, but he's not being rotated to give him a rest, isn't he? He's been
no, exactly.
He's been left out. That's the issue, and it almost feels a bit shady to compare him to Salah, but Salah doesn't always have a great game, but always brings a goal or an assist. It's absolutely remarkable. He often gets criticised in the Cup as much as Nunes would, but still delivers something. And if he's doing this, if Nunes is doing the same, then he can silence the critics. But Salah's on the pitch more than him, so it's a difficult situation.
It's interesting that both of Nunes' managers have sort of alluded to that he needs to do a bit more for the team. So that there obviously is something there that they both looked at and thought, well, take the goal scoring out of it, and he's not quite doing enough within the system. So maybe you hope that he sort of starts to get the picture with that, with Arne Slot a little bit better than he did under Jurgen Klopp, because clearly Klopp, towards the end of his reign, it felt like sort of didn't trust him anymore, really. Didn't start him, did he, in the final bit of the season last year. So I just wonder whether trust had gone there a little bit. But moving on to a player who is delivering at the moment, Luis Diaz, I think took his tally to 5 goals this season, with 2 more remarkable strikes. And you know, for a guy whose future was the subject of much speculation over the summer, Gorst, he really has hit this season. You know, he's hit the ground running this season. He looks probably Liverpool's best player, Liverpool's biggest outlet. You know, I thought on Saturday, he obviously took the 2 goals really, really well, but there were other times when he did that great dribble. I know he probably should have passed it, but just to burst through a couple of defenders like he did was so impressive. And he just looks like the dynamic player that we know he is, but with more of an end product. And that's kind of what we've wanted all along, haven't we?
Yeah.
And I think he just looks one of the best Premier League players when he's puts it all together like that, doesn't he?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the only thing that's ever been missing, really, from Luis Diaz's game. You know, we know he works incredibly hard. We know he's one of the most sort of progressive carriers of the ball that Liverpool have got, if not the best. You know, he gets right up the pitch, and Liverpool are under the cosh. Brilliant dribbler. And then the only thing that's been missing at times is the final touch, isn't it, in front of goal? I think that's been the only thing that's really held him back, aside from, you know, he had that bad injury, didn't he, at Arsenal, and then he off-the-field stuff with his dad, which is still a really bizarre one, but it was only maybe sort of condensed into a handful of games in terms of football. You know, he missed, what was it, a Europa League game, and was it an FA Cup game?
He came back against Luton, didn't he, in school?
Yeah. But yeah, no, he started like a house on fire, hasn't he? You know, really almost like a point to prove, because Liverpool were looking at Anthony Gordon, who plays directly in his position, and had things worked out differently. Anthony Gordon would have been a Liverpool player, so how much of that he's sort of taken with him as inspiration or sort of motivation, only he'll know, I guess, but he's absolutely flying, and long may it continue, because, you know, Liverpool have got so many forward options, but they're going to need to share the burden, aren't they? And he was probably one who could have certainly upped his tally a little bit more alongside Darwin Nunes last season, and he's got 5 this season. I think he only got 8 in the Premier League last season, so he's absolutely flying, and long may it continue, because when he's in this sort of form, he's exhilarating, isn't he?
Yeah. What I love about Luis Diaz, Rich, is just his willingness to get on the ball, and I think that relieves so much pressure on the team. You know, he's always an outlet. He battles quite hard. He tracks back, but he always offers for the ball, and he can relieve pressure on you by getting the ball up the pitch. But I do think his end product has lacked a little bit, albeit not as much as maybe people have made out. But I was in the car with Sean Bradbury on the way up to the Dan game yesterday, and Sean, I thought, made a good point. He said his first goal was kind of Mane-esque, the way he took it on his chest and went round the keeper.
Yeah, I thought that actually.
Yeah, exactly. I think if you get Mane took his game up a level at Liverpool, didn't he? He arrived, he obviously done really well at Southampton, but then he just stepped it up. He had a good first season, but then from second season onwards, he was one of the best players in the world. And you sort of, I still feel like Diaz, you're waiting for him to take that next step. And at the start of this season, he's doing that. If he can keep it up, do you think that will take him up?
Oh, how I miss a peak Sadio Mane, bringing back the glory days there of that front three. Yeah, he's a player that we've sort of struggled to replace, really, I think. I mean, well, it's hard to replace Bobby Firmino as well, but yeah, it's an interesting comparison. And football's a funny game, isn't it? Because, you know, Liverpool could have signed Anthony Gordon in the summer. If Barcelona had any money, could they have taken Luis Diaz? Because it was rumoured that he would have, he's got a good affinity to that club and may have fancied it. If he thought Anthony Gordon was coming in, we might not have had Luis Diaz if the situation was different. But whatever's happened, the bottom line is he started this season on fire, and you'd be looking at what's better, bringing in Anthony Gordon or a player that we've already got, we don't have to pay any more money for, who's not on a huge contract, I don't think, compared to what might be offered to Alexander-Arnold, Van Dijk and Salah over the next few weeks. And he's playing better than anyone, isn't he? And more so, he's a great entertainer. It's great to watch when he's on fire. There's no one more exciting on the pitch, I don't think. The way he's unbelievably talented footballer, and the way he can glide past people. And yeah, he was getting plenty of stick in the stands last season for not delivering an end product, whether that would be scoring or playing, the final pass leading to a goal. Just wasn't there for whatever reason. But that problem appears to have disappeared at the start of this new season. So I don't know what Honest Lot said to him, or whether he's just seen a threat to his position in the team and took the bull by the horns and decided to up his game. But whatever it is, it's fantastic to see. And he's got a great song as well, which the cop enjoys singing, and that puts everyone in a joyous mood and give them a boost. So I'm all for the endorphins rushing through my veins thanks to Luis Diaz at the moment.
Well, Federico Chiesa got on the pitch at the weekend, Gorsty, and maybe brought about some endorphins of his own. It was a sort of lively 18-minute cameo, obviously, at that half volley, didn't he? And then hit the post, albeit he was offside from that chance. But it was still sort of a bit of intent from him coming in. We've always had a couple of weeks to see him. But what did you make of it? And what I want to ask you both, I'm going to give you mine straight away in case either of you steal it. But what's the most sort of off the bench cameo that you've seen from it? What's the best one you've seen from a new player? I always remember seeing Dirk Kuyt come off the bench against West Ham.
Yeah.
And just sort of like Chiesa, I think he had a shot within about 30 seconds to a minute of coming on. He was showing for everything. He was across the pitch. Obviously, Dirk's energy was his best quality, but the way he came on and just never hid, was around for everything. And I really thought it set the tone for his career at Liverpool. And Chiesa had a little bit of that for me. What did you make of it? And can you give us a player like that you remember, a cameo appearing from the bench?
Didn't Suarez come on against Stoke and go around the keeping and slot one away in like them sort of orangey red boots? I always remember that one. And that obviously set the tone for what was to follow, didn't it?
It was that one that bobbled over the line, didn't it? And
yeah.
I think, did it go down as an own goal in the end? Didn't one of their players go and push it in?
It didn't certainly look like an own goal. I think you're giving it though, which was mad. But,
yeah. So maybe that one's the first one that comes to mind. But yeah, it was good to see, wasn't it? Chiesa come off the bench and when he hit that one, his eyes must have lit up when it dropped over the shoulder, and he's thinking, "Oh, I can hit this." And imagine that would have flown in, cop end on your debut within your first touch. No, I thought he was good. There will be a little bit of rust there. He hasn't really played much at all, has he? Since the Euros, since June, didn't really have much of a pre-season to call his own. Has been playing with the under-21 contingent during the international break, so take some time for him to get up to speed. And I think Liverpool don't need to rush him into it at the moment. I think he's in a good little place. They can afford him all the time they need. I think it'd be good to see him at some stage for a prolonged period on Wednesday. But a decent cameo. He was offside, wasn't he, when he hit the post? So can't really reflect too much on that chance. But yeah, positive signs, and he looks electric, doesn't he? He's got that turn of pace. Ability to just glide past defenders. Really positive cameo, something to build on, and I think Wednesday night might be a good opportunity for him.
Same question to you, Rich. What did you make of it? And can you remember? You can't pick Suarez, you can't pick Kuyt.
Yeah, I mean, Suarez was a good example, wasn't it? Yeah. So I've had to dig back through my brain cells a little bit further. Remember
all three of them?
Well, what's left of them, yeah. You get to a certain age, you just disappear, I think. I think, I don't know. Well, the one I'm going to settle on would be Michael Owen. I think he came on against Wimbledon and like 16 or 17 and scored, which was just about outrageous, but didn't look out of place. You know what I mean? Just straight in. There was someone who was basically just playing without any fear whatsoever. Very similar situation with Robbie Fowler, of course, who I think he scored and then went on to start a game and score 5. I think it was against Fulham in the Carabao Cup many moons ago. I remember following that on teletext, which gives you an idea of how long ago it was, in between probably booking a cheap holiday to Ibiza or something.
And how old you are as well.
Exactly, yeah. We'll keep that under wraps. But Owen, an instant impact. And the kite one was a classic one, because I literally think he had the shot with his first touch of the ball.
Was it his first touch? Yeah, I remember it.
Yeah, just like ran onto it. Yeah, and we're like, oh my God, what have we got here? So we didn't quite get the player I thought we were getting with Cal, but what we did get was an Anfield stalwart for me. No one gave more than he did in a red shirt. His energy was unbelievable. Duracell Bunny, they used to call him, didn't they? And his absolute knack for scoring big games was incredible. But whether Federico Chiesa is going to do the same as that is difficult to say. He absolutely loves being here, though, doesn't he? He's made no secret of that. The guy looks absolutely delighted. I do think that there's probably, obviously he's been sort of brought in very slowly at the moment to try and get his fitness up. He can probably get leaner than he is at the moment, and that's going to take a few weeks. That the lack of game time is a problem, and especially if you're adapting from Italian football to the Premier League, that in itself is a big step. And if he's going to be a success for Liverpool, I think he'll also be the first Italian player to have actually achieved that, because if you look at the previous Italians that have played for Liverpool, I don't think any of them did anything of note or lasted very long. So if he can become a success, he'll be setting a new standard. But I'm excited to see what he can do, and hopefully he does get a decent run out this week in a game that, whether you like it or not. And I know you're a massive fan of the Carabao Cup, Joe. So I don't want to diminish it, but
don't you dare! You won't be back on this pod.
If there's less riding on that competition compared to some of the others, then perhaps there will be an opportunity to give him a decent run. But I do think one thing he's got in his favour, he came in on a very good deal, and there's other players fighting for those three positions up front. So he does look like someone who might have time on the side.
Yeah, well, Richard said it, and you've all been waiting for it. You've sat through 37 turgid minutes of this podcast just to get to hear us say the C word. It's the competition the Champions League goes to bed every night fantasising about. It's the Carabao Cup. And it starts for Liverpool tomorrow evening against West Ham. Wednesday evening against West Ham. It's just a great competition, is it, Gorsty? We're on the same page about this.
Yeah. No VAR. Straight to pens. No replays, all night games, all get to see players you don't really see too often. I feel like I say the same thing every season, but it doesn't make it any less true. The Carabao Cup is back. Looking at the holes, of course.
Yeah, all Carabao, all fun. It's just, exactly. You strip away all the rubbish bits, VAR, replays, extra time, 12:30 kickoffs, all that sort of thing is gone. You just have fun. The pressure's off. Everyone enjoys it. You get to see a few different players. Silly teams rotate. Like West Ham, it's a good one you said before. I know West Ham are under a bit of pressure, but they'll come and they'll most likely rotate, which I find mad. Because these teams go years without winning trophies. I know West Ham won one a couple of years back, but a lot of teams go years without winning trophies, and then they rotate their team. And I think, what are you doing? This is a chance to win a trophy. And what I was like, that Liverpool have a real go at it, and obviously have the best record at it. And anyone who was there at Wembley last year, anyone who was there will tell you that I don't care what they say, whether they don't think it's an important competition, that day makes it all worth it. And it was an incredible day last year. So let's pick our teams. And even though I've just said that the silly teams rotate, I still think Liverpool will. So I'll let you go first, Rich. So give us your back five.
Didn't know we were doing this. I haven't prepared.
You should have thought.
Yeah, caught me on the hop, haven't you? Should have written one down. It's been a while. Kelleher in goal. Bradley at right back. Tsimikas at left back. I do think Liverpool do need to buy another left back, by the way. I just think we need a bit more strength in that position. Although Andy Robertson's still doing the business, but that might be another conversation for another pod.
Yeah.
Well, after saying Van Dijk's indispensable for the Carabao Cup, I'm going to dispense with him. and I'm going to go with Canate and Quanta at centre back. Midfield.
No, hang on, no.
He's doing the full 11.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're on the back four. Sorry.
Don't get carried away, Rich. Don't get carried away.
That's good. We're getting worn out, to be honest. So, yeah.
You can have a think about how I do my back five. Not much different for me. I think I'm going to give Joe Gomez a start at centre back alongside Kwanzaa. Simicast in for Robertson and Conor Bradley in for Trent. Interestingly, with Alisson being a bit hamstrung, does Jaros get the nod above Kelleher for this one? And I think it'll be a little bit of an indication as to how well Alisson is if Kelleher plays on Wednesday. But for the purposes of being optimistic, I'm going to pick Kelleher and Alisson back for Saturday at Wolves.
Yeah, you know what? I see what you mean there. I'm going to pick Kelleher. I think Kelleher just needs some football now, and I think Jaros will be happy to sort of buy this time. So Kelleher's in there, Bradley certainly at right back. But I'm going to keep. I never like a full back four change, so I'll keep Kanate in. I'd put Quansah in for Van Dijk, give him a breather, and I'd keep Robertson in because Simicast did get a game last week. So yeah, that would be my back five. Rich, go on. I'll let you pick me in midfield. I can see you scribbling things down. Like Benitez on the touchline.
Just refamiliarise myself with the players. I'm going to keep Ryan Gravenberch in. I think he's in great form. It could be, there's an actual, you could say, give him a rest, throw Endo in. I just think the way he's performing at the moment, I'd like to see him carry on with that. So I'm going to keep him in. Going to bring in Curtis Jones and give McAllister a rest. I think McAllister's poorest performance this season was straight after the international break, after he'd been away. So he looks a player to me that benefits from having a little rest from time to time. So I'm just going to bring Curtis Jones in with Szoboszlai.
Go on, Gorsty.
Yeah, not too much difference again. I think I'm going to stick with Gravenberch. I'm going to bring in Endo. I'm going to give Curtis a little run out in the number 10 role, rest Szoboszlai. I'd like to see what Jones can do a little bit further forward. We know he's played deeper at times and sort of played off the left of the front three, certainly when he was younger. But yeah, play him centrally in the number 10 and see how he gets on. Yeah,
I'm with you, Ghosty. I think, like the both of you, I think keeping Gravenberch in and trying to keep him in form is important. I thought it was interesting that Endo got left out of the squad completely at the weekend, which I think probably speaks volumes as to where he sits really in the pecking order now. He just doesn't seem like an Arne Slot player. But will be needed for this competition and didn't let anyone down last season. At one point, he famously was the world's best player. Might no longer be that, but he will be much needed for this competition. And like you, I think Slot will probably use Curtis in the alongside Gravenberch or alongside McAllister a bit more. But I think Szoboszlai needs a rest. I think he's put in a hell of a lot of effort. Like you, Rich, I think McAllister needs a rest. So I think it would make sense. I think if Harvey Elliott would have been a fit again, this game would be great for him. But I think it makes sense to bring Endo in and push Curtis a touch further forward.
Be nice to see Traynor only get some minutes as well, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe if the game's safe and secure with 20 to go or whatever, because he's a real talent. And Liverpool actually, I hope so. How much Slot rates him. Mm-hmm. What he's been doing with them in pre-season and stuff. He travelled with them for the Ipswich game, didn't he? So I hope so, yeah. It'd be good to see him. Yeah.
Go on, I'll let you do your forward line, Ghosty. And
I'm going to stick with Nunes. I'm going to bring in Gakpo and tell him to do what he did against AC Milan because he was sensational. And then Chiesa gets a start on the right and that'll be the one that we're all sort of have our eyes peeled to, won't we, on the night. That's my front three.
Yeah. Rich?
It's the same front three, to be honest with you. Yeah, I'd do exactly the same. Gakpo again, someone who will try his best to force his way into this forward line over the course of the season, and I'm looking forward to see what he can do. Nunes, let's see how we can build on his goal at the weekend. If he scores a couple, keep his emotions in check, we'll be all right. Make that a routine, not a special occasion. And Chiesa, has he got a full 90 in him? Find out, but I think it would do no harm to start him, give Salah a rest, and then we can always change things up after an hour, can't you? So, yeah, same forward three for me.
Yeah, clean sweep. I mean, it says a lot, doesn't it, about Liverpool's forward line that you can put those three in a Carabao Cup game and think, well, West Ham would look at that, wouldn't they, and think, Real, that's a hell of a front three to contend with. And like you say, I think this is where you look at Nunes and go, come on, you're now out of that front three. You've been there longest. You are, you're a £65 million striker, and you want him to sort of turn the screw on West Ham and lead the line properly on Wednesday night. So I think it's a really good forward line for Liverpool, and can't wait to see what Chiesa can do from the start. Gorsty, give us a prediction. You're on mute, mate. Back to those pandemic years.
Old school. I'm going to go with another 3. I think Liverpool will win 3-1.
Yeah. Rich?
I'm going to go 2-1, I think.
I'm going to go 3-1 as well. I think West Ham will make changes and Liverpool will have too much for them. And it will be another great night of Carabao football. And that's all we've got time for. We'll come back on either Thursday or Friday. We haven't decided yet. We'll let you know to look back on that Carabao Cup game and look ahead to Wolves at the weekend. Big thank you, Rich, for joining us. Nice reintroduction back to the pod.
Pleasure's all mine. Happy to be back.
Don't be a stranger, Rich.
We'll get on more.
Yeah, what's that?
Don't be a stranger. Get on more.
Oh yeah, I'm always there. You've got a good roster of personalities, but yeah,
Mondays, Fridays, get yourself a name.
Also like vets, we're happy to come on.
Good man, and thank you very much, Gorsty, and thanks to Frankie for showing his arse in the. I just said the word arse right at the end of the podcast, so you're gonna have to bleep that.
Through 45 minutes there, and then you've soiled yourself.
Yeah. Where is he? Where's Frankie gone?
He's causing havoc on the couch.
For anyone who's listening, by the way, Frankie's Gorsty's dog, not some random person.
I've got a dash out like yourself, Joe. So if it is to become a thing, bringing pets onto the pod, I can sort that out, no problem.
Yeah, I don't bring Tony into the office, unfortunately. What's your dashing called?
Sizzles.
Sizzles.
Yeah.
Frankie, Sizzles, and Tony. We should get them on the next pod. Right. Thanks very much for listening. Give us a like, subscribe, thumbs up, all those nice things. We really appreciate it. We'll be back on Thursday or Friday. We'll see you then. It's all right.